Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here.
Hey guys, welcome to the first video in this three-part series of an intro to compositing in Adobe After Effects. So, as you can see here, I've got Premiere Pro open, a short film that I've been working on, and there's a few shots that need compositing, and we're going to use that to start getting into the basics of how to composite in After Effects. I'm going to press play. This is the scene, and if we scroll through, right, it's a bit of a dialogue scene, stuff escalates. If I play it from here, right, it escalates, he pulls away. These shots are all okay, but there's this group shot here that I want to work on, this one here. Now, right, it's very short, it passes by, it's nothing too big, but if we take a look at it, we take a look at this guy here, doesn't look so into the scene, right? We're scrolling through, he's a little bit, smiley, but I really like the movement that these guys here make. The way they're walking, pacing-wise, to go from this shot to this shot to this shot, makes sense. But there's a part later in this clip with this guy, right? So let's go over here and let's take a look at our material. So when you download the material for the tutorial set, you should be able to find these three folders. Now, for the first video, we'll open our basic interface folder. Now, this is the original footage of the shot that we're going to use. And as you can see, the part that we want to use is this clip here of the guys over here walking, right? If we keep moving down, we can see he rubs his chin. Yeah, he rubs his chin, lifts, looks over, right? To then start talking for the rest of the conversation. This chin rub, I really like. So we want to put the clip of him doing this on these guys here. Now how can we do that? Well, that'll be a very simple composite, and we can do it very easily in After Effects, right? Here's an example of what the shot looks like in the end, right? You see? We have him rubbing his face now as they walk there. Looks a little bit more right for the scene. Okay, now let's open After Effects, and we'll open a new project. When we open After Effects, we're greeted with this. It's a little confusing, a little daunting. Now, if we all have a little bit of basics introduction to Premiere Pro, and as we can see, if we go back and forth, it looks pretty similar. It's not too different, right? We got the projects on this side, the timeline in the bottom, and our program monitor here. In After Effects, it'll be the same thing, except this is going to be where we see our composition. We have our timeline down at the bottom again, and we have our project files and everything here. So let's get started with understanding how this works with some footage. So we're going to take our shot, group wide shot 2, and we want to import it into After Effects. Now we can do it two ways. We can right click here in the project window, go import file, or we can just drag and drop, which is usually easier, and now we have it here. Now, After Effects works similarly to Premiere Pro, where we have all these different windows, like as I was saying. We want to make sure while we're editing, right, that we can click between the windows. But let's get started by creating a composition. We can create a composition which is kind of like a sequence, but I'll show you why it's a little bit different in a second. We drag it down, we click it, boom. This little button here creates a new composition. And this composition has the settings of this shot. As you can see, he's very smiley there. He comes back into character, right? We'll worry about that stuff in a bit, right? We have our time indicator of where we are in the timeline. If we press the space bar, we can view the shot, yeah? Now, important things to understand, first of all, is we're seeing our footage here. If we double click it, this opens now a place where we can view our footage. Opens another window. Sorry about that. We can even do it up here. We want to view our footage. This is like in Premiere Pro when we would view it so that we could then cut and take in what we want. Close that tab, we don't need that. We already have the composition open. To get started, to understand how the timeline works, it works a little bit differently than Premiere Pro, right? Remember in Premiere Pro, if we take a look at this, we have all these tracks, and we have multiple layers on each track. Cool. If we go back over into After Effects, now we can see that if we bring in, for example, we bring it in again, layers are slightly different. We can't do the tracks the same way and put multiple ones on the same track. In After Effects, we work with layers, right? And as you can see, every time we bring in a new file or a new element into our composition, it stacks on top of itself. If we take a look to see how this actually works, it's like putting a piece of paper on top of the other, right? We turn off the top layer, now we can see the bottom. Turn it back on and off using this little eye icon here in the corner, and that helps us visualize what's happening. Let's get started. So we want to first figure out which part of the clip we want to take. So what we're going to do, duplicate the file because we want to have a second layer. Let's turn that off for now. And the part of the clip that we want to save is from 115 to about there. Let's click it, and to split the clip, right, we can either pull this in and drag it in, boom, to 115, and as we can see, it tells me here in the corner where we are, Now we want to bring this until 310. And from here, we can either drag it in again, right? So that it's in the right spot from the clip length. It's the same length as this clip sequence here in Premiere Pro. If we go back to the 310 mark, we can cut it a different way. We select the layer, we go to edit, we go to split layer. And let's take that, let's delete that. Now, let's take our top clip. Now we can do it the same way. Let's find the part that we want to cut. So we want to go to 306, same thing, edit, split layer. We go down, we can delete that. Or we can do it with the keyboard shortcut, which is going to be Command-Shift-D. Let's find what we want. We can also go here. The part we want to cut is at 501. Go to 501, select the layer, click Command-Shift-D, and that cuts it. We can delete that top clip by just clicking the delete key. Now, see, we can drag the layers on the timeline like this in our composition. We want our work area to be just the part of the clip. We don't need all this black on the sides. So we're going to drag these from the corner and we're going to drag it in. And this is kind of like an in and out point like we did in Premiere Pro. Except in this case, this is our work area. If we press play now, this part will probably loop like this. Now, we can get rid of this black by going to Composition and Trim Comp to Work Area, or by doing the keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-X. Boom. Now our work area and our composition is exactly this long. Now the problem we have here is we can't see the base footage. If we turn the top one off, now we can see this guy walk over and we can see him take a seat. If we turn it on, he's already sitting down, and that's a problem, but we do need this part of this guy's face. So we're going to go into some of the tools and let's start learning how we can use these layers to see the bottom. So what we're going to do is we can go up here. Right now we've been using the select tool, and the select tool, the keyboard shortcut's V, is very important for being able to use the interface, right? Being able to select stuff, move stuff around. Yeah, so we're going to use the rectangle tool. We can use the pen tool, sorry, but we're going to use the rectangle tool. It's a little bit easier for this case. So what we're going to do, we're going to click where we want this line to be about there, and as you can see, changes the screen as I pull it up like this. It's already revealing the top layer and using this to cover the bottom. Boom. Like that. Perfect. Click V again, so we go back to our selection tool. If we turn on and off this first layer, we can now see that this little clip, we solo it like this, is like this. This is a little like piece of paper we've cut out and put on top. And what this is, when we do this is called matting, creating a mat, right? And a mat is basically when we create a part of the frame that's going to be blank so that we can reveal something else through it underneath, okay? Which is what we're doing here. Now, this is not bad, this is pretty good. Only problem is we have this hard line here. So we want to try and blend it so it doesn't look so jarring. So what we're going to do, we go over here, we open this tab, and we're going to open this clip that says masks. And we open this, right? Or we can close it and just click the M key. Click the MT twice, and that also opens this area. From here, we want to feather it. And see, feathering it is going to be solo it, it'll be easier to see. Feathering it makes that edge a little bit softer, okay? Now I do want to, drag this up a little higher just to be a little safer. I think we want this to go on this diagonal, kind of like this, okay? We want to feather it, not too much, but just a decent amount, so the mask, he stays inside so he doesn't cover it. Because if he's like this, we can see there's an issue with seeing him, he's not going to be visible. What we want to do is make sure that this mat keeps it divided, keeps it on the side, and we want to keep him inside the mask. Perfect. If we press play forward now, we should have a clip that looks pretty good. We can keep playing with where we want it to keep getting a softer line, but I think that's as good as we're gonna get. Wait, we can come into that issue there. You see, we need to stay there because the guy appears there. Now, let's save, and we can save by clicking Command S or File, Save As. I usually find it better when you save it to a place, you save it right next to all the footage all in one place so that it's not somewhere else on the computer, because After Effects works the same way as Premiere Pro where it links the footage back to where you found it. So if you move the clip, it completely gets messed up and it gets all confusing because After Effects loses the knowledge of where that location of the clip was on the computer. But we don't have to worry about now. Let's just rename this 2022. Let's go 3.1 because it's the ISU, and we can go basic interface. Now from here, we want to export our footage. We want to go File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And from here, we want to select where we want this clip to go. We want it to export back into this basic interface. And we can click our settings. I would leave them default because the QuickTime Player is usually a good one. And we would click Render. So it renders right inside of After Effects. And boom. There goes our final shot. We go back here. You can see that it is exported and we have our final clip. Cool. Other ways to export, right? There's multiple ways to do everything in After Effects, even in Premiere Pro, right? This is just the easiest way, right? We can do render queue. Sorry, let's go back to the timeline so it's not grayed out. For exporting, use Adobe Media Encoder. We can use render queue, or we can use Premiere Pro, right? We can export it right into an Adobe, the dynamic link, and right into Premiere. Or we can use this, but we don't really need to worry about Cinema 4D for now. I hope that kind of makes sense as an intro to After Effects. Basic ideas we learned. We learned basically how everything works, and it's important to understand each window. It's pretty similar to Premiere Pro. It's a little bit different with the way the timeline works, because it's more about compositing and putting together single shots and less about editing clips into a sequence. Can't really edit clips into a sequence, like as you can see with the way the layers work. You bring in stacks on top of itself. Cannot be placed next to it. Alright? That's how the layers work. We learned what mats are, right? So we can put something on top of it and take a clip, and we just create a mat so that we can place it onto another clip and combine multiple shots or multiple elements together. We learned about the mask tool, which is the one over here. We can use these shape tools, right, which can be very helpful. The mask tool will usually be the main one we use normally, and the selection tool V. V is the selection tool. Selection tool is very helpful for everything. I hope you learned something in this tutorial, and I will see you guys in the next one.